So, are used oil and waste oil the same thing? Are they both considered universal waste? And if they're not, why does it seem like everyone uses those terms interchangeably? Today, we're going to clear up one of the most common compliance questions we hear: whether used oil or waste oil falls under the universal waste rules, and why the federal answer is simple, but state rules can complicate things real fast. Hey there, I'm Doug Ruhlin from RMA, your environmental experts. We help facilities of all shapes and sizes understand and manage their wastes in a way that keeps their operations running and hiccups to a minimum. But before we go too far, know this: if you're unsure how your facility is managing oil streams, you can always reach out to us here at RMA. Okay, let's dive in. Under federal EPA rules, the answer is straightforward. Used oil is not universal waste. Universal waste at the federal level is limited to a short list of categories: batteries, mercury-containing equipment, lamps, meaning mostly mercury-containing light bulbs, certain pesticides, and aerosol cans. Used oil is not on that list. Instead, used oil is regulated under its own section of RCRA, specifically 40 CFR Part 279. Federally, used oil is defined as oil that's been refined from crude or synthetic oil, has been used already, and has become contaminated from that use. Think motor oil, hydraulic oil, gear oil, compressor oil. Used oil has its own storage, labeling, transport, and recycling standards. It must be clearly labeled used oil. It must be managed to prevent releases to the environment. And if you mix it improperly with hazardous waste, it can become fully regulated hazardous waste. But under federal rules, it is not universal waste. Now let's talk about waste oil. Here's the key point: there is no federal regulated category called waste oil. When someone says waste oil, they might mean used oil, or oil that wasn't used that's mixed with contaminants, or oil that's hazardous waste, or oily debris. The phrase itself creates confusion. Under federal rules, the defined category is used oil. If oil gets mixed with hazardous solvents or other regulated waste streams, it may no longer qualify as used oil and could instead become regulated as hazardous waste. Calling something waste oil doesn't reduce your regulatory obligations. In some cases, it can actually increase them if the oil is mismanaged. Now here's where things get even more complicated. Environmental compliance changes when you cross state lines. States that are authorized to run their own RCRA programs can expand universal waste categories or use different terminology. And that's where facilities often get tripped up. Pennsylvania is a good example. Historically, Pennsylvania has used the term waste oil for oil destined for disposal rather than recycling. That terminology has caused confusion because many facilities assume waste oil is just another way of saying used oil. It's not that simple. In Pennsylvania, used oil intended for recycling follows used oil management standards. Oil that can't be recycled and is being discarded may be regulated differently and could fall under hazardous waste rules depending upon its characteristics. That language difference has led to mislabeling, improper storage, and compliance gaps. And it's not just Pennsylvania. Some states expand universal waste programs beyond the federal baseline. California, for example, has one of the broadest universal waste programs in the country and regulates many electronic wastes under universal waste rules. But even in states that expand universal waste categories, most still regulate used oil under separate used oil standards, not necessarily as universal waste in the same way as batteries or lamps are treated. So you cannot assume used oil qualifies as universal waste just because your state expanded other categories. Now let's talk about why this matters. Misclassifying oil streams can affect your hazardous waste generator status, your reporting thresholds, your inspection exposure, your spill response obligations, and your long-term liability. If you label a drum universal waste oil in a state that doesn't recognize that category, you've just created a violation. If you mix used oil with hazardous solvents, you may convert it fully and completely into regulated hazardous waste. If you use the term waste oil without understanding how your state defines it, you may unintentionally trigger stricter disposal requirements. This is one of those areas where two words can make a big difference. So here's the bottom line. Under federal EPA regulations, used oil is not universal waste, and waste oil is not an official regulatory category at all. Used oil is regulated separately under its own RCRA standards. Some states expand universal waste categories. Some use different terminology, but in most cases, used oil remains regulated under used oil rules, not universal waste rules. The safest approach is to classify your oil streams carefully, understand your state's specific terminology, and avoid assuming federal rules tell the whole story. If you're unsure whether your oil qualifies as used oil, hazardous waste, or falls under an expanded state program, reach out to us here at RMA. We're happy to walk you through your specific situation and help you get it right.